Good evening, everybody. Welcome back to my channel. Today, I'm going to be doing a governor prediction, an updated governor prediction for September, late September, early October. So I will just get right into it because there's been some very interesting polls recently that I've broken down, some that I haven't. So we will predict the upcoming governor election in the midterms. Going to start with safe states. That will be South Dakota, Nebraska, Wyoming, Idaho, Alaska, Oklahoma, Arkansas, Alabama, South Carolina, Tennessee, Iowa, and Ohio. And on top of that, I'm also going to put Texas because I do not see a scenario where Greg Abbott loses by any margin to Beto O'Rourke, and I don't even think Beto O'Rourke will get it anywhere close. I think it will be double digits. And I'm on the edge of putting Florida in the same category. And then obviously there's Vermont with Phil Scott and New Hampshire with Chris Sununu. Now, the safe Democrat states, that would be Hawaii, California. Newsom, unfortunately, will not lose. Pritzker in Illinois. We also have Rhode Island and Connecticut. Massachusetts had a Republican governor, but he is not running. And same thing with Maryland. No longer will there be a Republican governor, and the more liberal Republican is not running. Therefore, the state will go back to safe Dem. And then lastly, the only other safe state I'd consider putting is New York. But that one, now realistically, probably will be safe, but there have been some interesting polls, as we can see here, that show the race closer than some people would expect. As you can see, Kathy Hochul's only ahead by about 4 points over Lee Zeldin. Now, that's why I'm skeptical to even put it in safe. Now, it probably, at the end of the day, will be close to safe still. It's possible it could get to a likely margin, but I don't see it winnable for Republicans. It's possible it could get to like 7 or 8 point Democrat instead of 10 to 15. But for now, I'm going to put it safe. If I see some more polling trends that show the state is moving more to the right, it's getting closer for Zeldin, I very much will be changing that prediction. I'm even questioning putting it safe right now. But in the meantime, I will keep it there. Now, I will move on to the likely states. Kansas, likely it will be a flip back for the Republicans. The 2018 election that led to the Democrat governor was really just a really good fluke. It was pure luck. She will not win again this time. It will be a Republican that will take it back. Now, we also have Georgia. Georgia, I do see going in a likely margin. Brian Kemp is popular in the state. He's done fairly well on most policy. He's gotten better since the 2020 election. I don't mind him for the most part. I would have preferred Perdue, but I will take a Republican governor in the state nonetheless over Stacey Abrams, one of the most unappealing candidates on the planet. There's almost no polling to show that she could even potentially win the state at this point. She's so despised by most people, especially Georgians. So she won't win it. Now, another likely Republican state, this one a little more controversial, but Arizona. That one will be very controversial, but it shouldn't be. It shouldn't. As we can see here, Kari Lake is leading by 4.4% in the latest Trafalgar poll. The state is starting to trend right back to the right. Kari Lake is gaining. She will continue to gain. The post-Labor Day surge is in full effect. It's continuing to grow along with the red wave. There's still 4.4% undecided as well, assuming those are independent voters, which they likely are. Those will end up splitting for Kari Lake more than they will for Katie Hobbs, which would put her at about a 5-point plus lead, which is the margin required for a likely electoral result. Now, again, another thing to consider with the state, the last election that had Doug Ducey winning, he won by about, I think, 12 to 14 points, somewhere in that margin. So it is still a very winnable state. The state will trend back to the right. All of the MAGA Republican candidates right now are leading in the state, except for Blake Masters, who is just barely behind and likely is really ahead based on actual polling data and how the trends have looked in the past. I did a whole video on that. That was my last video. If you want, you can go check that out. Now, on top of this, I have one more that I'm considering potentially putting as a likely Republican. Now, it's questionable, but it is possible. And that one's Wisconsin. Now, people will disagree with that one as well. I don't think in the end it will be, so I'm going to leave it for now, and we'll move on to any likely Democrat states. In this case, I think that will be Colorado, and that is it. I think that's the only likely Democrat state. Polis will win. He's popular enough in the state to win. There have been some polls that have showed it close, but not enough consistently. So I do think likely is probably the closest it'll get. Same thing will happen in the Senate race there. Now we have Nevada. This one, lean Republican. The state is fast trending to the right, and it's probably the most likely pickup for Republicans both in the Senate and governorships right now, easily. There's been enough polling data to show, plenty of polling data to show that the state is trending to the right, plenty to show that both Lombardo will win the governorship and Laxalt will win the Senate's race. It is a very exposed seat for both elections. Sisolak is not popular enough, and again, with the state trending to the right, I do see it very, very, very likely that Republicans pick this one up in a lean margin. I'd say 2 to 3% will go. The margin will be about 2 to 3% for the Republican candidates in the state. So that will be one of the first pickups for Republicans. Another one that I see happening is Pennsylvania. Now, Pennsylvania, I do see a terrific candidate, Doug Mastriano, Doug Vember, up and coming. Great candidate, great Christian nationalist, and a great conservative candidate running in the state. Terrific on policy. He's a man of God. He has impeccable character. He is very likely to win at this point, despite what some left-wing idiots might say and what a lot of doomers are saying. He's a good candidate. He's getting almost no funding, and the fact that he's only 2 points behind Josh Shapiro is impressive. So, Josh Shapiro, not very popular either. Another thing to consider, again, is how much polls seem to underestimate Republicans, especially in the swing states and Pennsylvania. It is very likely that this will continue to get closer, and as we saw before, Mastriano was behind by more. Realistically, I do see him gaining more ground and probably being ahead in the polls by the end of the election. In the end, I do think he will win it by a 3 to 4 point margin over Josh Shapiro. He's running a good campaign, and I think it'll continue to grow as we get closer to the midterm elections. Now, another one that I do think will be a lean margin is Wisconsin. It could potentially even go likely. That's more likely, I guess, for the Senate, but it is very possible that it could. In the end, for now, I'm going to put it in lean until I see more information, but it has fast trended to the right. As you can see here, Tim Michels is only 0.5% behind, which is basically saying it's already Republican, whether it be tilt or lean. Now, I think this race will probably be right now, I'd say about 2 to 3, maybe even 4 points for Tim Michels. Polling always seems to underestimate Republicans quite a bit in Wisconsin. It has consistently done so. I don't really know why. I'm not an absolute expert on it, but it does seem to be a consistent trend. So I do think Wisconsin flips and Tim Michels takes that. Now, the last few states here, these ones will all be a little bit closer, and there's many reasons for each of those. First of all, I'm going to start left to right. We'll go with Oregon. Now, this one's interesting. As you know, the state of Oregon has a 3-way vote split right now. Normally, in any usual election cycle, this would be a safe Democrat seat. However, the issue is the Democrats have decided to basically split the vote. As you can see, Kotek and Johnson are both splitting the vote on the left right now, which has basically let Drazen come right up the middle, Christine Drazen to come right up the middle and to take the lead in many of the polls. That is huge, huge news. That's something very interesting to consider. As you can see, she's leading in almost all of them except for one here. Now, this was also a Betsy Johnson poll. It was run for her. So that's the reason she's even so high in the first place. She won't get that. But in the end, it's interesting to see this because of the Democrats splitting the vote. We're going to see likely Oregon flipping, I'd say, in a lean margin at best, but probably tilt margin. Again, there hasn't been a lot of polls recently, but I would imagine the polls have remained consistent and the trends are more or less staying about where they are. And in the end, I do see the Republicans picking up that state. Now, whether they can win it again next cycle when they're more united on the left, that's unlikely, but it will be a good sign for the country. It'll be good for Oregon. Hopefully, the state can fix some of its completely messed up issues. Now, we also have New Mexico. This one is Ron Chetty. This one, it could go either way, although the Democrat candidate is a horrible person. I don't even know how she's still running, but that aside, the polls do have her ahead by a small margin. It's not very large. It's very possible it could flip, and Ron Chetty is a good candidate for the state. I do think in the end he will be able to flip it in a lean tilt margin. It'll be close, but I do think he can and will do it. Now, we also have the last three states here. This one, Minnesota. Minnesota is interesting. That's Tim Walz, the incumbent. But another thing to consider with the state, despite polling more or less having him a bit ahead, you have to consider the legal weed party in the state, which more or less picks up left-wing voters and seems to more or less get a consistent amount of support, around, I believe, 5 to 6% each election cycle, which will drain votes from the Democrats. And right now, with the red environment and the fact that Walz is not polling overly well anyway, it is very possible that Republicans pick up this race. And I do think this will be the cycle where Minnesota finally starts flipping and transitioning back to the right, becoming a potentially Republican state in the future, which is great news. I'm happy to see that the state might actually finally resolve the fact that it's been insane for so long. But this could go either way. Right now, I do think it will be a very, very slim margin, but a flip for Republicans. Now, we also have Tudor Dixon running in Michigan against evil Gretchen Whitmer. She's a disgusting woman. She's got horrible policy. She is a mass murderer of elderly people, and really, there's nothing positive about her whatsoever. Now, we have Tudor Dixon, a terrific MAGA candidate, Trump endorsed, who is running against her, running to unseat her, and hopefully she can do that. Now, will she do that? I could go either way on this one. I'm not overly decided right now. I could very well leave this one as toss-up, but I do think Tudor Dixon can pull it off. Right now I believe that it is going to be a Republican pickup. Now, it'll be slim, and it could very possibly be this instead. Now, there's a lot of Democrats saying, "Oh, no, don't, you're wrong. No. Whitmer will win it. She'll win it. She'll win it in a likely margin. No, hell no, she's going to win it in a safe margin. No, she's not. You're insane. You don't know what you're talking about, and you've been wrong the entire time." Realistically, it'll be a tilt margin for either side, either Democrat or Republican. Go either way. But right now, I'm putting it as a tilt for Tudor Dixon. And then lastly, we have Maine. Realistically, this one could potentially be won by Republicans, but at the end of the day, I don't think it will be. I think it'll probably be lean, maybe tilt, but for now, I'm going to say it's going to be lean. It is a state Republicans could potentially pick up. The state has kind of trended to the right in recent years. I'd hope that trend continues. I'd like to be wrong about that prediction. I really would. I'd like to see Maine flip, but as of right now, I don't see it absurdly likely. So I'm going to keep it in the lean column. Anyways, that is my final prediction for the governor elections in the 2022 midterms. Do you agree with my prediction? Do you think that Republicans can pick up this many seats, or do you disagree with something about it? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe as well if you are new, and leave a like on the video. Anyways, that's all for now. Hope you guys have a good night.